You see, the fundamental misunderstanding most of us fall into is this. We believe we must get somewhere, achieve something, become someone other than who we already are. And so we set off on this great journey of life like it's a straight road with a finish line at the end, some distant place where all the pieces of the puzzle finally click. But this illusion of a destination only creates a perpetual sense of incompletion. It feeds the notion that now is never quite enough, that you are never quite enough. But let me ask you, what if there is nowhere to go? What if, in this exact moment, everything you ever needed to feel complete was already present? Not as a potential, but as a reality waiting for your recognition. The game changes entirely when you act not from lack, but from fullness. To act as if you already have everything is not pretense. It is not self-deception. It is a return to sanity. It is a shift in the inner posture of your being. You are no longer begging life for scraps. You are walking through it as though you were the author of its pages, because in a very peculiar way you are. When you walk, talk, breathe, and create as if your desires are already yours, something curious begins to happen. The world bends, not because you forced it, but because you ceased resisting it. You see, reality is not as fixed as we like to think. It's more like music than mathematics. Fluid, expressive, alive. And like music, it doesn't arrive at a particular point to make sense. Its meaning is in the unfolding, the rhythm, the presence. And so when you align with that rhythm, when you live as though you are already whole, already wealthy, already loved, you become the dance rather than the dancer. This is not a matter of pretending. It is an invitation to recognize that your inner world is the starting point, not the response. You don't smile because the world is kind. You smile, and the world often returns the gesture. So too with abundance, with love, with freedom. To wait until you are free, to feel free, is like waiting for silence to begin your song. Acting as if is not an act of ego. It is a surrender to the deeper truth that you are not what happens to you, but what flows through you. The person who waits for proof before believing will always be a step behind, but the one who knows that belief is the proof, that one moves the mountains. That one dances without needing a stage. That one is free. We are often taught from the earliest moments of our lives that something is missing, that we must strive, reach, chase, and become, that we must acquire a title, a possession, a relationship, a spiritual awakening, something just beyond the horizon of now. And so we internalize the idea that we are not complete. We think we are a project under construction, a work in progress, always reaching for some elusive point of arrival. But the more we chase it, the further it seems to drift away, because this idea that you are not whole in this moment is the very illusion that creates suffering. The truth is far more simple and far more profound. There is nothing to chase because nothing is missing. The idea that something is absent is a construct of the mind, a trick it plays to keep itself moving. But if you stop and become aware, really aware of your breath, the stillness underneath the noise, the pulse of life itself, you begin to sense something strange, a presence that doesn't need improvement, a being that doesn't need fixing, a completeness that exists not because of what you have, a complete experience, as if all other being, life, living and being You see, the sense of incompletion is like a fog we have become used to walking in. We no longer question it, we adapt to it. We think, once I have this, then I will feel peace. Or, once I become that, then I will be free. And yet, every time we reach a new milestone, the mind shifts the target. The finish line moves. What was once a goal becomes just another step. And so life becomes a cycle of postponing happiness, peace, and contentment until some future event justifies it. But pause for a moment. Strip away the noise of desire. Strip away the grasping, the craving, the comparison. And what remains is stillness. What remains is being. That is the you that has never been broken. That is the you that exists before the roles, before the goals, before the identities. It's not an empty void. It's fullness. It's wholeness in its purest form. It's the you that doesn't need validation to know it exists. It simply is. When you realize this, when you feel it in your bones, the chase starts to look rather silly. Think of it like this. Imagine a wave in the ocean constantly trying to become water. It moves with urgency, it rises, it crashes, it breaks, trying so hard to be what it already is. It does not realize that it has always been water from the beginning. In the same way, we push and pull and hustle, trying to become worthy, loved, successful, enlightened, forgetting that our very essence is already complete, not perfect, but whole. And this doesn't mean you stop growing or creating, but the place you act from changes. No longer are your actions motivated by lack, by a need to prove your worth. They arise from joy, from inspiration, from the sheer delight of expressing what is already within you. When you know you are whole, you no longer seek experiences to fill a void. You engage with life because it's an extension of your being, not a fix for your brokenness. To live from this knowing is to live in peace, not because everything is easy, but because you are no longer resisting what is. You are no longer at war with yourself. The internal conflict dissolves, and with it, the frantic need to always be somewhere else, someone else doing something else. You begin to trust the moment, trust yourself, trust life, not as blind faith, but as deep recognition. It's easy to say, I will be happy when, but notice how that phrase never ends. There's always another condition, another achievement, another piece of the puzzle. But when you let go of the idea that anything needs to be added to you for you to be whole, the chase ends. And in that ending, a quiet joy rises, not the kind that shouts or flashes, but the kind that simply is, steady, present, untouched. Most people fear that if they stop chasing, they'll become stagnant. But the opposite is true. When you realize you're already whole, your actions become more potent, more meaningful. You're not acting out of desperation or lack. You're not trying to fix your life. You're expressing it. You begin to play rather than perform. You move not to become, but because moving is part of the dance. And this dance of life becomes far more beautiful when you're not constantly stepping over yourself, trying to reach a future that never arrives. Every moment becomes enough. Every breath becomes sacred. Even the so-called ordinary things, a sip of water, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of laughter, become extraordinary because you are finally present enough to see them, to feel them, to be with them. This is the essence of having everything right now. It's not about material wealth, titles, or accomplishments. Those things can come and go. This is about the deep, unshakable knowing that you lack nothing, that you don't need to become something else to be worthy of peace, that you can return to yourself not tomorrow, not when things are better, but right now. You have been enough all along. And the moment you stop running towards something else is the moment you arrive fully where you are. And where you are, in its raw, quiet simplicity, is everything. To act as if you already have everything is often misunderstood. People think it means putting on a show, pretending to be someone you're not, faking a smile when things are crumbling, or lying to yourself about your circumstances. But the truth is far more subtle, more profound. It is not an act of pretending, it is an act of remembering. Remembering who you are underneath the layers of doubt, fear, and conditioning. It is not deception, it is recognition. A deep inner knowing that what you seek you already are. The world tells you to wait. It tells you to wait until you've earned the right to feel worthy. Wait until you've accomplished something, until someone approves of you, until the external world gives you permission to be powerful, confident, joyful. And so you wait. You wait for the job, the partner, the applause, the spiritual breakthrough. You delay the fullness of your expression in the name of realism. You tell yourself you'll be happy when circumstances justify it. To act as if you already have everything is to stop waiting. It is to stop living in reaction to the world and start living as the cause. It is to walk into the room not needing validation, not hoping for acceptance, but simply knowing that your presence is enough, knowing that your essence carries value whether or not the world claps. That kind of knowing isn't loud. It doesn't have to convince anyone. It simply is. This way of being does not mean you're blind to what's happening around you. It doesn't mean you ignore your bank account or deny the challenges you face. It means you no longer identify with them. You recognize that your true power lies not in reacting to the evidence of the senses, but in standing in the feeling of already being the person you wish to become. Because in a strange paradoxical way, you only become that version of yourself when you stop trying to be them and instead live as them. The mind might say, but I don't have it yet. How can I act as if I do? And that is where you gently smile and say, I don't need to have it to be it. Because the outer form is always the echo of the inner state. And the inner state is entirely within your domain. It is the one thing in life that is always yours. You can be in a quiet room with nothing but your breath and still feel rich, still feel chosen, still feel like a vessel overflowing with life. When you begin to live from that place, the world doesn't ignore you, it responds to you. But it doesn't respond because you're demanding or manipulating or forcing. It responds because you are no longer in resistance. You've surrendered the identity of the seeker and stepped into the truth of the one who knows. This is not arrogance, this is not delusion. It is not about declaring I'm better or I'm above. It's about no longer agreeing to the smallness you were taught to believe in. It's about stepping outside of the story that says you are not enough. It's about shedding that skin and choosing to live in alignment with a deeper reality, one where your worth isn't conditional, your love isn't earned, and your joy isn't postponed. People often ask, but what if it doesn't work? What if I act as if and nothing changes? But the very question reveals the misunderstanding. You don't act as if to get something. You act as if because you are something. The change is not a transaction, it's a transformation. You're not trying to manipulate the world, you're aligning yourself with the world you wish to see. You're tuning your inner frequency to the station of abundance, peace, love. Not because it guarantees a result, but because that's who you've chosen to be. This is the only freedom that matters. The freedom to choose your state, regardless of the shifting sands around you. It's not easy, because the world constantly tries to pull you back into old patterns of fear and doubt. But every time you choose to act from the knowing rather than the needing, you strengthen a new foundation, and that foundation begins to carry you even in the face of adversity. You may not see immediate results. That's okay. The fruit doesn't grow the moment you plant the seed. But something changes within you the moment you stop living as a reaction and start living as a decision. When you walk, speak, breathe from the place of already being, already having, already becoming, you're no longer asking life for permission, you're giving it direction. And this is not limited to money or success or relationships. This touches every part of your being. It's how you carry yourself when you wake up in the morning. It's the silence you keep when someone doubts you, because you no longer need to explain yourself. It's the energy that walks ahead of your words. People feel it. Life feels it. And maybe that's the point. Not to chase something outside of you, but to finally sit in the center of yourself and remember. So when you act as if, you're not pretending. You're awakening. You're turning the key from the inside. The moment you act as if you already have everything, something strange begins to happen. Not outside of you, but within. The energy shifts. The way you carry yourself changes. The choices you make are no longer desperate or reactive, but rooted, intentional, and whole. And as this shift takes place within you, the world begins to mirror it back. Not immediately, not always in the ways you expect, but unmistakably something begins to align. We are taught that the external must change first, that the world must give us a reason to feel secure, joyful, or abundant, and so we become watchers, waiting for signs, dependent on outcomes. But the truth operates in the opposite direction. The external is not the cause, it is the echo. It is not the master, it is the shadow of our inner condition. To wait for things to look different before you feel different is to live in perpetual hesitation, because the world cannot give you what you are not willing to embody first. The universe does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. This is not mystical in the way people might think. It is deeply practical. If you are living from a place of lack, even if your words say abundance, your energy says otherwise. If you say, I am worthy, but you move through life apologetically, hesitantly, waiting for someone else to confirm your value, then the world picks up on the hesitancy, not the affirmation. But when you act as if you already are what you desire to be, when you walk as if the path is already laid out before you, you are no longer seeking alignment. You are becoming. Imagine waking up tomorrow and deciding, not hoping, not pretending, but deciding that you are already in possession of the inner wealth you seek. That the love, the freedom, the peace you long for is not a goal, but your starting point. What would you do differently? How would you speak to others? How would you speak to yourself? How would you hold your body? Would you rush Would you chase, or would you move with the quiet, steady rhythm of someone who knows that all is already well? This shift is subtle. It happens not through dramatic declarations, but through small, consistent decisions. Choosing to speak from your heart instead of from fear. Choosing to slow down and listen to the stillness within rather than reacting to every external demand. Choosing to say no when something no longer fits the version of yourself that you are now living from. These small acts accumulate, and soon your outer life cannot help but reflect your inner stance. The reason acting as if is so powerful is because it bypasses the mind's constant need for evidence. The mind wants proof before belief. It says, "Show me and I'll believe." But that is the language of delay, the language of postponement, the language of powerlessness. The language of true creation says, "I believe, and therefore I see." Not in a blind way, not in an arrogant way, but in a way that recognizes the source of reality is within. You are not tricking the universe when you act as if. You are aligning with its laws. You are tuning your inner state to the frequency of the life you desire, and in doing so you make it easier for that life to flow to you. Not because you forced it, but because you became the version of yourself who no longer blocks it. You stopped resisting your own power. You stopped arguing for your limitations. You stopped identifying with lack. Acting as if is not about pretending to be rich while your bank account says otherwise. It's not about faking a relationship or putting on a spiritual mask. It's about living in integrity with your highest truth. And your highest truth is that you are already enough, that you are already connected, that you are already whole. From that place you begin to create not out of desperation, but out of joy. Not because you need to fix something, but because you are expressing something that is already complete. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to convince anyone. When you act as if you already have everything, the energy does the speaking for you. You begin to radiate confidence. Not a loud, boastful confidence, but a quiet, magnetic presence. You don't demand attention, but you draw it. Not because you are seeking it, but because you are not resisting your own light anymore. People may not be able to articulate it, but they feel it. The world feels it. And it's not just people. It's opportunities. Doors that once felt closed begin to shift. Conversations lead to new pathways. Ideas that once seemed far away begin to land gently in your awareness. You find yourself in the right place at the right time, not because you chased it, but because you aligned with it. You stepped into the current instead of swimming against it. You may not see the outcome right away. The external still takes time to catch up to the internal shift. But in the space between acting as if and seeing the evidence, you discover something more precious than the result itself. You discover the joy of embodiment. The joy of living as the person you once only dreamed of becoming. And in that joy, in that state of wholeness, you realize that what you were chasing was never the thing. It was the feeling, the experience, the knowing. And that knowing is available to you now. So when you act as if, you are not waiting for a sign. You are the sign. You are no longer seeking proof from the outside world. You have become your own evidence. You have become the mirror you once looked for. The moment you live as if it's already yours, you begin to embody the very energy that creates worlds. And that energy moves through you, not in fits and starts, but in flow. To understand that the self you seek to become already exists within you is to step outside of the illusion of time. You see, we are taught to perceive life as a linear unfolding, where you are here now, and what you want is somewhere ahead of you, waiting to be earned or discovered. But this is not how reality works. Not really. Reality is not a path, but a field. Every version of you, every possibility, already exists within that field. And the version of yourself who has everything you dream of, peace, joy, abundance, love, is not far away. It is not a distant achievement. It is a vibration already present in your being, waiting to be acknowledged. When you act as if you already are the version of yourself you want to become, you are not faking anything. You are choosing from within the infinite spectrum of your identity. You are saying, I will no longer live according to the story I was handed. I will live from the truth that has always been here, beneath the noise, beneath the fear. This isn't about pretending, it's about awakening. Because pretending is rooted in fear, but awakening is rooted in remembrance. The truth is, you're not becoming something new. You are shedding the layers of conditioning, of limitation, of belief systems that kept you playing small, so that what is already true can be seen more clearly. What does it mean to say that the future you already exists? It means that who you imagine yourself to be, confident, clear, healed, creative, is already real in the timeless now. And you can tune into that version not by waiting for time to pass, but by matching its frequency. How does that version of you feel? How do they speak? How do they move through the world? Not because they have something external, but because they embody something internal. This version of you doesn't wait for permission. They don't need circumstances to be perfect. They don't need everyone to understand, because they know that clarity is not given, it is claimed, and freedom is not granted, it is remembered. So when you begin to move from this inner place, your outer world begins to catch up. It must, because the world is only ever reflecting who you believe yourself to be. And here's the beautiful paradox. Nothing outside needs to change for you to live this way. That is the secret. That's the liberation. You don't have to be richer, more successful, more recognized, more loved by others to step into your wholeness. You just have to stop waiting. Stop deferring your peace. Stop telling yourself that one day you will arrive. There is no arrival. There is only now. And in this now lives every possible version of you, waiting to be chosen. The moment you realize this, your relationship with desire transforms. No longer is it about acquiring something out there. It becomes about aligning with something already in here. You don't chase the dream, you embody the dreamer. You don't search for love, you become love's resting place. And everything shifts, not because the world changed, but because your point of view did. You are no longer climbing the mountain, you are realizing you are the mountain. This awareness changes how you make decisions. Instead of asking, what should I do to become who I want to be? You ask, what would that version of me choose right now? And then you choose it. Even if it scares you. Even if it's unfamiliar. Especially if it's unfamiliar. Because growth is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more deeply yourself. The habits, thoughts, and emotions of the version of you who already has everything are not random. They are choices, and every time you choose to act from that energy, you strengthen the signal. The internal wiring starts to align with that reality. It's like tuning a radio. The station already exists. You don't need to create it. You just need to tune your attention to it. That's what acting as if truly is. Not a mask you wear, but a frequency you return to, again and again, until it becomes natural. And make no mistake, this isn't about striving. It's not about perfection or performance. It's not about building an identity to protect yourself with. It's about softening into the truth of who you already are. You don't have to hustle your way into worthiness. You don't have to prove anything. You don't even have to be fearless. You just have to be honest. What would you do if you knew you already had what you seek? If you knew the outcome was certain, if you knew the universe was supporting you in unseen ways, you'd probably breathe deeper, speak slower, move with intention. And in that space, life begins to meet you. This is the art of co-creation. Not from a place of force, but from alignment. You don't bend the world to your will. You align with a deeper intelligence that's already moving through you. And as you do, the things you once chased begin to arrive. Not because you needed them to complete you, but because you finally stopped resisting them with your doubt, your fear, your self-denial. Everything you want is waiting at the level of your embodiment, not at the level of your effort. When you step into that inner knowing, your external world becomes a mirror, not a test. You see, you are not here to struggle into being. You are here to remember what has always been. To live from the awareness that you are already whole, already worthy, already capable. And from that state, everything changes. Not because you change the world, but because you stop pretending you are anything less than divine. To truly live as if you already have everything is to surrender the need to control how and when things manifest. There is a deep wisdom in this kind of surrender. Not as a passive resignation, but as an active trust in the flow of life itself. We are conditioned to believe that if we don't make something happen, it won't happen. That without pushing, striving, forcing, nothing worthwhile can come to be. But this belief is rooted in fear. The fear that life is not intelligent, that the universe does not respond to our inner world, that we are separate from the very fabric of creation. The paradox is that the more you try to force life into the shape of your expectation, the more resistance you encounter. It's like grasping water. It slips through your fingers the harder you squeeze. When you chase, you affirm lack. When you strive, you often imply that what you want is not already yours. But when you surrender, when you let go of needing it to happen your way in your time, you enter a state of harmony with the deeper rhythm of existence. You become allied, attuned, and receptive. This surrender is not about doing nothing. It's not about waiting on the sidelines, hoping for a miracle. It is about releasing attachment to outcomes while continuing to move, speak, and choose as the version of yourself who already has it all. It's a state of inner assurance, a calm knowing that you don't have to beg life for what is already coded into your being. You don't need to scream into the void. You only need to whisper in alignment, and then let go. This letting go is an invitation to move with trust. Trust that you are not here by accident. Trust that the desires you hold were placed in your heart for a reason. Trust that the path will reveal itself not all at once, but moment by moment, step by step. Trust doesn't mean you always feel certain. It means you're willing to walk even when you don't. You show up in faith, You speak kindly to yourself when doubt creeps in. You continue to embody the energy of having, even when the evidence hasn't arrived yet. Because you know that it's not the evidence that creates belief, it's the belief that creates evidence. Surrender also frees you from the constant anxiety of time. You stop needing everything to happen now. You no longer measure your success by the ticking of a clock. You begin to sense the beauty of divine timing, not as a cliché, but as a felt experience. When you let go of the pressure to rush, to prove, to achieve, people, opportunities, and ideas begin to flow toward you, not because you're trying so hard to attract them, but because you've become a space that no longer repels them with resistance. When you surrender, you also release the mental chatter that keeps you in a state of questioning. When will it come? How will it happen? What if I'm doing it wrong? These questions are rooted in the mind's need for control. But the truth is, the mind cannot comprehend the infinite intelligence that orchestrates your reality. It cannot predict the mysterious, intricate, and often non-linear ways that your desires are coming into form. So instead of trying to figure it all out, you learn to let go. You rest in the silence between your thoughts. You become available to inspiration, guidance, and synchronicity, none of which can arrive when your mind is constantly strategizing, doubting, or comparing. Letting go also means releasing the idea that you need to be someone else in order to be worthy of what you want. So many of us believe that if we just become more productive, more attractive, more enlightened, then we'll be ready. But what if readiness is not about improvement? What if it's about remembrance? Remembering that the version of you who already has it all is not a future fantasy, but a deeper truth, already living inside of you. And so surrender becomes the space where transformation happens, not because you pushed, but because you allowed. You didn't force the flower to bloom. You created the conditions for blooming by removing the tension, the noise, and the fear. This kind of surrender brings peace. You no longer live in a constant state of reaction. You're no longer triggered by every delay or disappointment. You understand that the universe is always responding, always rearranging things for your highest good. Even the detours, the pauses, the closed doors, they are not punishments. They are realignments. And the more you trust this, the less you resist, and the faster things unfold. Surrender also means you don't need to micromanage the path of others. You release your grip on how people should respond, who should support you, what others should believe about you. You realize that your reality is not dependent on external approval. You are not defined by someone else's recognition or misunderstanding. When you let go of the need to convince others of your worth, you reclaim your energy. You stop leaking power. You stand in your own field and allow others to come or go without disturbing your peace. To surrender is to say yes, not to every circumstance, but to the deeper current underneath it all. Yes to growth. Yes to expansion. Yes to the unknown. You no longer ask life to fit your plans. You allow your plans to be shaped by life. You become a dance partner with the divine, moving not in rigid steps, but in intuitive flow. This is not weakness. So you keep choosing this path, not once, but again and again. In each moment where fear rises, you return to surrender. In each moment where doubt whispers, you come back to presence. You remind yourself that you are not here to chase. You are here to become, to remember, to receive, and to let life surprise you in ways the mind could never have planned.